Hey everyone, how's it going today? It's Dan from EvolvedJeepin, and today I am here to do another review video for the AccuAir 3.5-inch dynamic lift kit for the Jeep JL. For those who are unfamiliar about what this lift kit is, it is basically an adjustable air ride suspension lift kit designed for the Jeep. About a year ago this month, I actually installed this kit. And if you have not already, make sure to check out the installation videos where I show the complete steps to do the process and to get this kit on your Jeep, as well as make sure to check out my post-installation review videos where I go over some of the first impressions of this lift kit, some of the issues I had during the installation, and a bunch of other details. Because it has been a full year, I figured this made sense for me to do this video now so that I can show you guys how the kit is doing, as well as give you guys my overall likes and dislikes about the kit. What I'm gonna do first is I'm actually gonna go ahead and show you guys all the components and how they are doing to see if there's any premature wear or anything we should be concerned about. To do this, what I'm actually gonna do first is I'm actually gonna go and drop the air management skid plate with all the air management system on it. The reason I'm gonna do this is I really wanna show you guys how those components are doing, as well as there's a couple things I wanted to check out. I wanted to see if there's any liquid or water in the tank. So I'm actually going to disconnect the tank and see if there's liquid in there. From my understanding, the system has an auto purge and it's supposed to be purging liquid, but I really want to confirm that to see if that is the case. As well as I actually do have a small leak on the tank. It's nothing really concerning, but if I leave the Jeep for a week, basically when I get back, the tank will be empty and then I have to run it to fill it back up. So what we're gonna do is go ahead, drop that tank, and then we'll go about and check out all the control arms, the bags, and do all that. Okay, so now that we have the skid plate down, or at least hanging, let's now take a look at each of the components. The first one we're going to talk about is the skid plate itself. As you can see, it's already starting to rust on the edges. Unfortunately, I actually noticed this was starting to happen within a month of installing it. What I noticed was the powder coating was flaking off, and I knew that was going to lead to this rust areas happening. I contacted AccuAir, said, look, do you guys know this is happening? Is this something you can do? Can you send me a replacement part? At the time they said, yeah, we actually do know this is happening. What happened was their person responsible for doing the metal bending and cutting used the wrong cutting process and it didn't stick well with the powder coating. So I said, well, okay, that sucks. They assured me that it's no longer happening on the new kits. They've corrected that, but unfortunately a few of the first kits had this issue. At the time, they said they didn't have a replacement for the plate, and I was just gonna have to deal with it. So I said, that's fine, I'll hit them with paint and we'll go from there. Maybe now that they can see that they are starting to get a little worse and the rust is starting to build up, that maybe they'll be able to send me a new plate and I can replace it. As for the pump and the manifold, I don't see any issues with those. They seem to be working just fine. For the tank, this is a little more complicated. So when I took this thing down, I wanted to check to see if there was water in the tank and whether the purge was actually purging the water. What that meant I had to do was I actually had to disconnect the tank from the air, obviously, that was the first thing. Then I actually had to unscrew the mounting points for the tank just so that I could lift this up enough to access the air port underneath, unscrew that to see if there was any water. Fortunately, when I did do that, there was a bunch of water, and you can see it's just drained out over here. Luckily, that water was just clear. There was no signs of rust or anything. So that's a good thing. The inside of the tank is not rusting or anything. So that's good, but it has confirmed that you do need to drain your tank once a year just to make sure that there's no stagnant water in here and it is moving out. This kind of leads to me to the next, or the dislikes, and I'll talk about this later, but as you can see, to do this, you have to drop the plate, undo these, just to open up that valve to drain it. It's a lot of work, and that's gonna lead to one of my dislikes that I'll talk about later. So for now, what we're gonna do is we're actually going to put this all back together. As I mentioned, it did have a small leak, and I found it. It was the pressure valve that goes at the top of the tank at the top. So I've unscrewed that, put new tape on it. We're gonna put it back in. We're also gonna do the bottom one, new tape, put that back in. Then we're gonna mount the system back up, and we should be good to go to take a look at all the other components that are part of this kit. Now that we've got the air management back in place, let's take a look at the front components to see if there's any premature wear that we need to be concerned about. On the front bag looks nice on this side. No signs of any wear or tear. Sway bar link is in place, no weakness there. The shock looks good as well. No signs of any liquid or anything coming out. Looks like it's really good. I haven't really abused them, so there really shouldn't be any issues. The other side, the bag looks healthy, nothing concerned, no rubbing, nothing really shock, is everything's strong, everything's in place the way it should be. As for the front control arms, we can see they look really good as well. No signs of any rust or anything. Both sides look good, upper and lower, no issues whatsoever. And then onto the back, we can see the control arms look great. No signs of rust on the upper or the lower. Those look perfect. Both driver's side, no issues, no joint issues, no weakness. Onto the bags and the shocks, we can see the bags themselves look great. No signs of any rubbing or anything. Sway bar link is strong. Shock looks good, no leaking. And both sides look to be performing exactly as they should, with no issues, no concerns whatsoever. So guys, as you can see, last weekend I did not finish my video, and that was mainly due to the fact that I ran out of time because last weekend was the start of daylight savings and I did not have enough daylight to come film this part of the video. On the previous part of the video, what we were doing was we were taking a look at all the components that we installed a year ago for the AccuAir 3.5-inch dynamic lift kit. We were taking a look at those components to see if there was any signs of premature wear or anything that we should be concerned about. Luckily, besides the skid plate for the air management system, everything looked brand new and there was nothing showing any signs of wear. For the second part of this video, what we're going to be doing is discussing our likes and dislikes for this kit. And we're going to start with our likes. My first like is probably the main feature to this kit, and that is adjustability. With this kit, you have the ability to adjust all four corners depending on your desired need. So an example of this is if you're off-roading, you have the ability to adjust your approach angle or your departure angle to help with getting over that obstacle and avoid smashing your bumper on that obstacle. Another example is if you're overlanding where you have either a rooftop tent or you're prepared to sleep in the back of your Jeep. When you're overlanding, usually the terrain is not necessarily level. So sometimes you'll park your Jeep for the night and that's going to be a place you're going to stay, but your Jeep is unlevel. Well, with this kit, you can easily, with the press of a button, just adjust the height of the Jeep to level it out so that when you're sleeping, you have a nice level surface. And of course, the biggest thing with this kit and the adjustability is it is just fun to play with. It's fun to set the Jeep up in these weird stance that get people looking and curious about the setup. It is also great to hand the controller over to a child and let them press the buttons and see the joy that it gives to them. I definitely enjoy that, and I've done it many, many times because it's just awesome to see their smile and see them press the buttons. My next like has to do with the preset ride heights. This kit comes with 3 different presets. two of which can be run above 25 miles per hour, and the third one can only be run below 25 miles per hour. The first preset that we're going to talk about is actually the preset that the vehicle is on right now, and that is preset number 2. This is a 3.5-inch lift, and it is your default ride height setting. So basically, when you turn on your vehicle automatically go up to this preset because this is what the kit is designed to run at perfectly. But with that, you actually have another preset that you can run at on the road all the time, and that is preset number 1. Preset number 1 is a lower ride height. It's about 1 to 1.5 inches lower. This ride height is the ride height that I would choose if I'm looking for a more smooth and comfortable ride. What this kit does is it lowers the vehicle down, decreasing the pressure in the airbags, so that gives your axle a little bit more room to travel and flow without sending the force of the road into the vehicle. For myself, I would actually run this preset all the time, but the issue I have is because I'm running 37s with a full width bumper, you can see I do not have enough room to turn. So the only time I really run this preset is when I'm driving on the highway. And that's a good thing because this makes a smoother ride for those long drives on the highway or the freeways. And it also gets you better gas mileage. I actually did a video where I tested this out. And if you have not checked that out, make sure to go check that out. But you do actually get better gas mileage when you're running on preset number 1 than number 2. And that's mainly due to the amount of air drag that you get while driving on a taller lift than a lower lift. The last preset that we're going to talk about is preset number 3, and this is the preset that can only be run when you're going under 25 miles per hour. If you go above 25 miles per hour, the Jeep will actually lower back down to preset number 2. Preset number 3 is actually more useful when you're driving off-road. It gives you the ability to get a little bit more clearance when needed. For myself, I actually did the New Jersey Jeep Invasion obstacle course, which really isn't that hard. But one issue I had when I was riding in preset number 2 and I had the front sway bars disconnected, I mainly did that for fun. I was actually having an issue where my front tires were connecting with my full width bumper. So what I was able to do was, while we're halfway through the course, I just hit preset number 3, gave me a little bit of height clearance, and my tires were able to clear without contacting the bumper. This was great to have and definitely worked well. The kit is designed not to run over 25 miles per hour because you will run into some drive shaft angle issues, and we really don't want to have those issues and problems happen. So the kit is designed that as soon as you hit 25 miles per hour, it goes lower and your then drive shafts will be in a better angle. My next like has to do with getting in and out of a lifted Jeep. For anybody who has a 3.5-inch lifted Jeep with 37s, you know that the ground clearance is a lot. And for someone my height, it's not really a problem. I can get in and out of this Jeep without issue. But for someone like my mother who has really short legs, she definitely struggles to get in and out of this Jeep at this height. And when watching it, it's actually quite painful to watch. So luckily with this AccuAir kit, you have the ability to air it completely out, which brings it to 1 inch lower than stock height, which with 37s isn't going to be lower than stock, but it still brings this step really low and close to the ground to make it easy for her to put her foot on the step to get in and out of the vehicle. So another reason for airing the vehicle completely out is actually when you're loading stuff into the back of the Jeep. For anyone who's had a lifted Jeep and you're trying to lift that heavy box up into the back of the Jeep, it's definitely a pain in the butt to get it up that high. Well, luckily with this kit, you can just air it down and then you can simply lift that heavy box up and put it into the Jeep. This also leads us to our next like. This like has to do with the auto leveling feature. For anyone who's loaded a bunch of weight in the back of the Jeep or used a trailer, sometimes you'll end up with this Cali lean. Well, luckily, this kit has the ability to auto level itself when you hit a certain speed. So all you have to do is load up your Jeep, attach your trailer, and then once you start driving, your vehicle will actually level out so that it performs better and the handling is the way it's designed to be. My last like for this video has to do with the fact that this lift kit gives you onboard air. Because the system utilizes an air tank and a compressor, AccuAir went ahead and provided you with a quick connection point along with a pressure dial, and with the provided Vylar hose reel, you can actually use this lift kit as an onboard air system. This is useful for anybody who's needing to air up their tires after going on a trail, or like myself, and what I'm going to do right now is adjust the air pressure in my tires because the weather is changing from summer to winter and the pressure in my tires is a little off. So now that we've gone through all of our likes, let's go through our dislikes. The first dislike that I have for this kit is actually an answer to a question that I get all the time whenever someone sees this Jeep or one of my videos. The question they always ask is, how does it ride? Well, my answer is basically, because you think that it's got airbags in all four corners, it's gonna ride super smooth and feel like you're riding on clouds. Well, that is not the case. You have to remember that this is still a Jeep and this is still a lift kit. Don't get me wrong, I still think this rides really good, but I definitely think it could be a little better, especially for its price point. So I think this might be just a limitation of the airbag technology. For a traditional lift, you would go ahead and you would actually pull out the stock spring and put a taller spring in to give you that lift. Well, with this kit, you're putting in an airbag, and to give it its lift, you're actually adding air pressure. Well, unfortunately, when you're adding air pressure, you're also making the bag harder. And the harder the bag gets, the less rebound it has, and the stiffer the ride. I don't think that this is just the main reason that the ride is being affected and not as soft as you would think, but I think it also has to do with the shock. Right now, they're using JIR shocks, which I believe are a little different than what you would traditionally use with a traditional spring lift kit. I think these shocks are a little softer because they're accounting for the bag being a little harder than a spring. It does work, but I do think it could be a little bit more firm and a little bit more performance driven. What I feel is that when you are driving this lift kit around and you're on a freeway and you're going into a corner and you're on preset number 2, it just feels to have a lot of body roll. And then what I've also noticed is that when you go into those corners, if you hit a bump or a groove, the suspension has a little bit of a weird play in it, and it just makes you feel a little bit uncomfortable. I have noticed that if you ride at preset number 1 on the freeway and go into that same corner, it will feel a little bit more planted. The other thing I've noticed has to do with the overall performance of the airbag shock. And basically what I've noticed is that whenever you do hit a patch of rough roads or some potholes, the bumps and grooves don't get absorbed by the suspension. They seem to get put into the vehicle. What I would rather is maybe that the shocks were a little bit more firmer or had some type of performance upgrade. Maybe if the shocks had an adjustable dial that you could choose what you want, it would give you a little bit more control for this kit and give you the ability to really absorb those bumps. And I also think for the price point, adjustable shocks on this Jeep would not have been a bad thing. The next dislike that I have has to do with the controller. So you can see here that the controller is lit. Well, unfortunately, this controller does not have a day and a night setting. So even if you're driving during the day, this is how it will be lit. And then at night, it will be the same way. Well, if you're driving with it on your dash, this is a pretty bright light in your face at night. There is a way to bring down the brightness. You simply just press the single dot here, and then you go and press the down buttons on the top, and you can see it decreases in lightness all the way to off. You can go up to bring it back. That is the lowest setting. So I usually do this at night, but unfortunately, every time you turn the vehicle off and on, it will go right back to the bright setting. The next dislike that I have has to do with the manifold. The manifold is the control unit that allows air to flow in and out of each bag. What I noticed was a couple months after having it, the manifold started to develop this squealing noise when you were letting out the air. This noise was not present all the time, but it did seem to get worse and more consistent as the temperature got warmer and the humidity in the air increased. I figured, okay, well, this sounds like maybe it just needs to be greased up. So I actually put some compressor oil in the system, but that didn't fix it. It was still present. I went to AccuAir and said, look, this is happening. I don't know if this is normal. They actually said, we know of this issue and we're trying to solve it. I still have not got an update on that. Maybe we'll get one soon. But what I noticed is when the humidity is higher, this noise becomes a little bit more consistent. Right now, because the weather is a little cooler, it doesn't have the squeal going on and it sounds the way it should, which is just like this. That is exactly how the system should sound. That is how I want it to sound. Unfortunately, when it's warm and in the middle of summer, it gets this squealing noise going and it's just not the most pleasant thing to have, especially when you're trying to show off this system. It's just not really appealing. So hopefully they figure out a solution to that, because it's definitely one of my dislikes right now for the system. The next dislike that I have has to do with the app. Look, it's great that we have a phone app that can connect Bluetooth and gives you the ability to adjust the height, select different presets, all from the touch of your phone, and you can do it from outside the vehicle. But the big downfall about this system is that it is not really that great. It has some limitations. One of the limitations that I want to mention is the adjustability of each bag. So with the controller, you can just press each one and hold it and it'll raise and lower it. Well, with the app, you actually have to tap it numerous times to get a bag to fully inflate. I think maybe this is a safety feature, the fact that maybe they don't want the app to be on and in your pocket and it presses and changes the ride. But it's still a little bit of a pain in the butt. The next thing is the app actually has a full setting menu. Basically in that menu, it has a bunch of different things that you can do to this program. But unfortunately, maybe because of the way the Jeep has been programmed for safety, is that a lot of those settings do not translate back to the Jeep properly. An example is the auto start to ride height. Basically, this is a setting that if you turn it on, when you turn on your vehicle, it will go up to the default ride height. I have turned that off, and unfortunately, that does not communicate to the Jeep. And so even though it's turned off in the app, when I turn the Jeep on, it still goes to the auto default ride height. So I wish that the app had a little bit more control in the system. But again, this is probably due to the fact of a lot of safety things. They don't want you driving at the Jeep at level 3 or higher. They want the Jeep to ride at its presets that it's designed to operate properly at. So the last dislike that I have for this video is one of the more important ones for myself, and that has to do with the ability to service the kit. At the beginning of this video, I actually went ahead and dropped the entire air management skid plate just so that I can see if the auto purge feature that happens every time you fill the tank up with air was actually purging out the liquid. What I found out was there was actually liquid in the tank. So what this meant was that you actually have to manually drain your tank because the purge system is not doing that for you. This is where it becomes a bit of a problem, is because the way they've mounted the system in there and all the components are on top of it, you have to drop that entire skid plate and then unscrew the tank just to access the bottom valve at the bottom of the tank to drain it. It's very disappointing that the way they did this, they could have possibly just have done an upside down mounting system where it's a plate that holds all the components upside down and then it has a cover that you put on to protect it. Because then if they had done that, all you would have to do was remove the cover and then you could access all the components for the regular maintenance that you're going to have to do on the system. Maybe in the future they'll fix this, but for now, this is something I'm going to have to deal with every time I have to go and do my annual drain of the tank before winter comes. So guys, as you can see, I really only have a handful of dislikes, and I definitely have to say that the likes I have outweigh the dislikes. Even though I mentioned ride quality as a dislike, that was more because I was being picky about the system and wanting a little bit more from it. I would 100% recommend this kit to anybody who's looking for a 3.5-inch lift kit and wants some type of adjustability for their system, whether that's you're trying to fit your Jeep into a lower garage, or whether you're trying to lower and raise it to get in and out of it. There are many reasons that this type of lift kit could be beneficial to you. As mentioned, I'm going to put a link below to the AccuAir website for this kit. This kit goes for about 7 grand. Yes, I know that's an expensive price tag, but you have to think about this. You're getting a high quality lift kit and onboard air. If you were to go and put together kits from other places, you're going to be ending at the same price point anyways. So I definitely think that this is a good investment. And after having this kit for a year now and then checking all the components, I definitely confirm that this kit is built with high quality components that are built to last. So if anybody has any questions or comments, feel free to post them below and I'll do the best to answer them. As usual, please make sure to like, subscribe, and share. And at this point, we'll see you guys on the next video.